Cartoon Obsession. Hello everybody, my name is Nathan, and I am the man with a cartoon obsession. I'm sure we all have a certain series that we were looking forward to this year. In the case of today's topic, it's a series that I, and many other people, have been anticipating for roughly 3 years. But it's finally here, and I'm glad I was able to watch it, and now I can talk about it with you guys. Now let's get into my cartoon review of the new series, Close Enough. Close Enough is the latest project from J.G. Quintel, who is most well known as the creator of Regular Show. It was originally announced to air on TBS in 2017, but it was delayed several times and ultimately fell through when TBS decided to cancel its animation block. However, in October of 2019, it was announced that Close Enough would instead be exclusive to the new streaming platform HBO Max, and the show was finally released on July 9th, 2020. There are 8 episodes out right now, although there are apparently still 2 more Season 1 episodes that haven't been released yet for some reason. I really don't understand why Warner Media seems to be so hesitant about this show. It was delayed for years, and when it finally premiered on HBO Max, they didn't even put out all of Season 1. If it was split up half and half, that would have made more sense to me, but no, they just left out 2 episodes. I don't get it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start at the plot. The show revolves around a couple in their early 30s, Josh Singleton and Emily Ramirez, who live with their 5-year-old daughter Candace and their divorced friends Alex Dorpenberger and Bridget. They always find themselves in some sort of odd and surreal predicament, much like another show created by J.G. Quintel, and I'll try not to talk about that one too much, as I do plan on giving Regular Show its own review in the near future, but I have a section of this review where I'll draw some comparisons. Anyway, let's move on. If I didn't mention this already, I'll say it now. This show is definitely not meant for kids. It's full of swearing, sexual innuendos, and drug and alcohol usage. While some of that can be a bit too much depending on the context of the scene, for the most part it adds a good amount of humor to the show.
Make those other kids' patches look like S-H-I-T.
Total S-H-I-T.
Are you guys spelling shit? Damn it, those teachers are good.
So glad we considered that school.
The characters on this show also make a lot of references, and when I say references, I don't mean that they hint to real properties with clever name changes. I mean they actually name drop real websites, movies, bands, and whatever else you can think of. While this isn't completely unheard of, it's more common to change the names of things to avoid any sort of copyright issue. Some of the references they make may date the show a bit, and also they mention some things that I don't know if I'd call them obscure, but there's certainly things I haven't thought of in years, like the 2010 TNT crime drama Rizzoli and Isles, or the 2007 fantasy movie Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium. I got a kick out of those name drops personally, but I imagine there are plenty of people who either don't remember these things, or are just completely unfamiliar with them. But that's the chance you take when making references that are outside of the usual realm of pop culture. Moving on to the characters now, there's quite the variety here. First, there's Josh Singleton, who is apparently modeled after and based on J.G. Quintel, which makes sense to me. He's pretty laid back for the most part. He's a video game developer, and he also works for what is essentially this show's version of Geek Squad. His wife, Emily Ramirez, is also laid back for the most part, but she tries to be the more responsible of the two. She's an assistant at a food corporation, and she tends to be stressed out by her life at home quite a bit. Then there's their 5-year-old daughter, Candace, who's your standard happy-go-lucky little kid. She has some quality moments in the show, but she doesn't usually take up a bulk of the runtime. As for their roommates, there's Alex Dorpenberger, Josh's best friend and a community college professor. He's also really into Vikings and dreams of being an author. He's the more eccentric member of the cast, but he's not too out there. For the most part, he's still down to earth enough that he's easy to understand. And then there's his ex-wife and Emily's best friend, Bridget. She's a social media influencer and gets money from her family, who I'm assuming is well off. They don't really go into detail on that. Regardless, she's the type of character who basically embodies how most people in their 20s act these days. She's a little on the strange side too, but nowhere near the same levels as Alex. There are some other notable characters like Pearl Watson, the landlord, and her adopted son Randy, as well as Mr. Campbell, the hippie teacher at Candace's school. I personally got a chuckle out of this because when I was 5, my kindergarten teacher was also a hippie. It's a small world. There's a lot of great chemistry between these characters, and it leads to a lot of fun moments in each episode. The voice acting here is pretty good as well. I'm not familiar with a lot of the names on the cast list, but apparently there are a couple actors from Orange is the New Black and a bunch of comedians on this show. There are a couple familiar names here though, such as of course J.G. Quintel, who voices Josh, and if you're not familiar with his voice acting work, his most recognizable role is Mordecai from Regular Show. And also Jessica DeChico, who voices Candace, is a name I'm very familiar with. My favorite role of hers being Flame Princess from Adventure Time. There are also quite a few guest stars on here, some of my favorites being David Hasselhoff and Weird Al Yankovic, who portray themselves in cameo appearances. I know I usually talk about the animation and music and whatnot, and I will, but I did say that I was going to draw comparisons to Regular Show in this review, so here we go. First off, I just want to put this out there. I'm not trying to say that this is a Regular Show clone, because that's not what I think at all, but there are some similarities I want to point out. The obvious place to start would be the art style and animation. It looks just like Regular Show. In fact, the house from the park in Regular Show makes a brief appearance in one episode, which I honestly loved. However, with some of these characters, especially the minor and background characters, if you told me they were background characters in Regular Show, I'd probably believe you. There's not a whole lot of separation between the two shows as far as the art goes, however it is refreshing that almost all of the characters in Close Enough are people, whereas in Regular Show there were a lot of characters who were animals or gumball machines or ghosts or whatever else. Either way, I'm a fan of the art style and the animation looks great as well. As for the music, I was curious if Close Enough would use licensed music like Regular Show did, and that was indeed the case. Since there aren't a whole lot of episodes out at the moment, and not every episode features a song that isn't just part of the original soundtrack, which is also solid by the way, there aren't a lot of songs used in the show. The ones that are used though really complemented the montages they're placed over, which I expected, but was still pleased with.
We gotta stay.
The formula for each episode is pretty much the same between the two shows. There's the intro, the problem is established, there's a bizarre occurrence and usually some strange looking or acting antagonist, the problem is solved, the antagonist usually dies, and then some sort of zinger at the end of the episode. Formulaic or not, and similar or not, it works and makes for an enjoyable show, especially when they manage to throw in a curveball every now and then. So here's the big question now. Is Close Enough just a Regular Show for adults? The two shows have some striking similarities without a doubt, however I think Close Enough is still its own thing. The type of humor is ramped up a lot, and the casts of the two shows are different enough from each other that I would say they're not interchangeable. People may say that it is just a more mature Regular Show, and I understand that argument, but while there are a lot of similarities between the shows, and they even target roughly the same market because, let's be honest, Regular Show appealed to young adults just as much as it did kids, I think Close Enough can hold up on its own merit. So I think it's pretty obvious by now that I like Close Enough. I found a lot of enjoyment in this show overall. Like I said, it gets a little too weird and too unsettling at times, and I already mentioned the formulaic nature of the show, but that's not too big of an issue. Overall, I give Close Enough an 82 out of 100. I hope to see this show grow in the future, and please, for all that is holy, stop being so hesitant with this series. It hasn't been renewed for a second season yet, but at least release the 2 remaining season 1 episodes. I just really can't wrap my head around why they made that decision.
It took me a lot longer than I thought to get that BJ.
What? Bird Josh.
Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you have any other cartoons, anime, or other animated works that you want me to talk about in the future, please let me know. After all, it's not my channel, it's our channel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and feel free to check out my social media pages, audition for an outro, and join the official Cartoon Obsession Discord, the links for all of which are in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
I'm Aku, and thank you for watching Cartoon Obsession. Ah ha 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 ha!